Okay, so you should have watched the video on finding the discriminant first. That was the part 1 in this folder. So if you haven't, go back and watch that video first and complete that practice before you watch this video, because you'll be a little behind if you didn't watch that video first. Also, before we start this, if you want to make sure you have pages 189 and 190 printed out, I will actually be collecting 190. So if you are doing it on a separate sheet of paper, please make sure you're keeping very neat notes so that it's easy to read when you turn it in. And if you can print it out, that's great too. Either one is acceptable. So what we're going to do is we're going to, now that we've used the discriminant and figured out how many solutions that we're going to have, we're actually going to solve for what those solutions would be. So remember, this is our quadratic formula up here. This is very important that we remember this. We're going to use this all the time. So when we're actually solving using the quadratic formula, we're going to follow these steps that we have here. So we're going to go through these steps as we complete number 1. So first things first, we want to make sure that our equation is in standard form. Is the x squared first, then the x term, then the constant. So here we have our x term, our x, and then our constant. So step 1 is done. So then we want to identify a, b, and c. So in this case, a, remember there's an imaginary 1 here if there's not a number in front of x squared. So a would be 1, b would be 7, and c would be 12. So then after we figured out what a, b, and c are, we're going to find the discriminant. So just like we were in our first practice. So we're going to do that b squared minus 4ac so that we can figure out our number of solutions. So b is 7. So I have 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times 12. So then if I solve this, I have 7 squared, so 7 times 7 is 49. And then I have negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, right? If I multiply these two together first, I get negative 4. And then negative 4 times 12 would give me negative 48. So I have 49 minus 48. And 49 minus 48 would give me 1. So my discriminant is 1, which means that I have, because it's a positive 1, that means I have 2 solutions. So this is what we did in our first video in our first practice. So now from there, we're going to take it a couple steps further, and we're actually going to plug the rest into the quadratic formula to solve for those 2 answers. I know that there are 2 solutions. But now I want to know what those 2 solutions are. So using that quadratic formula, I still have the same a, b, and c values, but now I'm plugging it into this longer equation. So I have negative b, so I have a negative, and then b is 7, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. This part should look familiar because that's what we already solved for, right? So b squared minus 4ac, you already know the value is 1. So instead of rewriting all of that and solving again, don't do it more than once. Just know that you figured that out and you know that the value is 1. And then this is all over 2 times the value of a. And the value of a here is 1. So if I simplify this a little bit, the first thing I want to do is simplify that square root. So the square root of 1 would be 1. And then 2 times 1, this bottom piece, 2 times 1 would give me 2. So I've simplified as much as I can for now. Now what I have to do is this plus or minus means that I have to split these answers up. I have an answer where this is a plus sign, so I have negative 7 plus 1 over 2. And then I have a problem where it's a minus sign. I have a solution that's a minus sign. So negative 7 minus 1 over 2. So there's 2 solutions, right? We knew that there were 2 solutions. The 2 solutions come from splitting up that plus or minus. So negative 7 plus 1 would give me negative 6 divided by 2, which tells me that x equals negative 3, right? Negative 6 divided by 2 would give me negative 3. And then negative 7 minus 1 would give me negative 8 divided by 2 would tell me that x equals negative 4. So those are my 2 solutions, negative 3 and negative 4. All right, let's look at another example. All right, so let's look at number 2. So we're going to follow these same steps up here. So first is our equation in standard form, and it is, so we're set to go. So then the next part is to identify our A, B, and C. So my A in this case, right, there's an imaginary 1 here, so my A is 1, my B is 12, and my C is 36. So then the first thing I want to do with those is I want to find the discriminant. So that's my B squared minus 4AC. So B is 12, so I have 12 squared minus 4 times 1 times 36. So when I solve that, 12 squared would give me 144. Negative 4 times 1 would give me negative 4 times 36 would give me negative 144. So that means I have 144 minus 144, which gives me 0. So that means that my discriminant is 0, which means I only have one solution here. So when I solve using the quadratic formula, I'm going to only have one solution. So now when I use that quadratic formula, right, my quadratic formula is up here. When I use this, the nice part is we've already solved the b squared minus 4ac part. So we're just kind of plugging in the rest of the stuff. So I have x equals negative, and then b is 12, plus or minus, and then the square root of normally b squared minus 4ac. But we already solved b squared minus 4ac. We got 0. So we put 0 here, and then all over 2 times 1. Right? 2 times a, and a is 1. So now, when I simplify, the square root of 0 is 0, and 2 times 1 would give me 2. So now, the reason that we get only one solution here is that negative 12 plus 0 is negative 12, and negative 12 minus 0 is negative 12. So in this case, that plus or minus does not create two separate answers. It just gives me negative 12 divided by 2, which tells me that x is negative 6. So my one solution here is negative 6. All right, so let's look at a couple more examples together. So if we scroll down, we'll look at 3 and 4 together as well. And we want to follow these same steps. So hopefully you've got it printed out so you can keep referring to it. If not, I would highly recommend writing the quadratic formula at the top of your page, as well as these steps so that you can refer to them over and over again. So the first thing we want to do, and I made a little mistake on here, this should say equals 0. And so then we know that it's in standard form because we have x squared, x, and then our constant. So then we want to figure out what a, b, and c are. So here a is 1. B is negative 2. Let's erase that and write it in the correct spot. There we go. All right, B is negative 2, and C is 8. All right, so let's solve that b squared minus 4ac part first. So my b is negative 2, so I have negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times 8. Negative 2 squared means negative 2 times negative 2. So we're going to get a positive 4 when we square negative 2. And then negative 4 times 1 would give me negative 4 times 8 would give me negative 32. So negative 4 times 1 times 8 gives me negative 32. And then when I combine 4 minus 32, I get negative 28. Now, according to my discriminant, when I get a negative number here, that means I have no solution. And that's great because that means I get to stop here. I don't even have to go on to the next steps of solving because there's nothing to solve for. When I get a negative, that means I'm going to have no solution. So I'm done. All right, so then let's move on to our next example. So again, our equation's in standard form. I have my x squared, my x, my constant. So then in this problem, a is 2, B is -5, and C is -3. So I'm going to solve my b squared minus 4ac first. So I have -5 squared minus 4 times 2 times -3. So -5 squared means -5 times -5. So that would give me positive 25. And then -4 times 2 times -3. -4 times 2 would give me -8. Times -3 would give me positive 24. So then I have 25 plus 24, which would give me 49. So my discriminant is 49, and because it's a positive number, it's positive 49, that means I get two solutions. So now I want to go to my quadratic formula, which hopefully you have written down at the top of your page, and I want to plug in my A, B, and C and actually figure out what those two solutions are. So my quadratic formula tells me that x equals negative, and then we put in b. So b in this case is -5 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. But we've already solved that part. We know that b squared minus 4ac is 49. So I'm not even going to write all that mess. I just know that it's 49. So I'm just going to write the 49 in there. And then all over 2 times a, and a in this case is 2, so 2 times 2. So then I have, when I simplify, first of all I'm going to simplify these two negatives. Negative of -5, a negative and a negative make a positive, so that's going to be a positive 5. And then the square root of 49 is 7, and then all over 2 times 2, which is 4. So now when I solve this is, remember, when we have to split it up into our two answers. Because of this plus or minus, I have two solutions. So one of them is going to be when 5 plus 7 over 4, and the other one is going to be 5 minus 7 over 4. So if we look at 5 plus 7, 5 plus 7 is 12, divided by 4 would give me 3. So that means one of my solutions is x equals 3. The other one, I have 7 or 5 minus 7, which is -2, divided by 4, which we can simplify if we divide by 2 to -1/2. So my other solution is -1 over 2 or -1/2. So those are my two solutions to problem number 4. All right. So then let's try number 5 and 6 together. Actually, I would encourage you to pause this video and try number 5 and 6 on your own. And then once I go over it, you can kind of check your work and see if you did it correctly before you move on to do the next page by yourself. So if you want to try to see if you can do it, pause the video and then give these two a shot. All right, so then let's go over them. So looking at number 5, again, it's already in standard form. So that means that A is 3, B is 4, and C is -7. So the first thing I want to solve is my b squared minus 4ac. So in this case, b is 4, so I have 4 squared minus 4 times a is 3, and c is -7. All right, so when I do that, 4 squared, 4 times 4 is 16. And then I have -4 times 3 times -7. So -4 times 3 would give me -12. And then -12 times -7 would give me positive 84. So I'm going to have a positive 84 here. So 16 plus 84 would give me 100. So then because I got a positive number, that means I get two solutions. So now we're going to use the quadratic formula to figure out what those two solutions are. So we have x equals -b, and b is 4, so -4 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, which we solved to be 100, all over 2 times 3. So I have x equals -4 plus or minus the square root of 100 is 10, all over 2 times 3. It's not a very good looking 3. Let me fix that a little bit so that we're not, I don't know what number that looks like, but it definitely doesn't look like a 3. That didn't get much better. So this is 2 times 3. If you can't read this piece. So 2 times 3 would give me 6. So then remember, once I'm here, this is where I'm going to split that plus or minus up. So both of them have the -4, but this is going to be -4 plus 10 over 6, and this is going to be -4 minus 10 over 6. So -4 plus 10 would give me +6 divided by 6, which equals 1. So one of my solutions is x equals 1. And then -4 minus 10 would give me -14 divided by 6, which if I simplify by dividing by 2, I get -7 over 3. So my other solution is -7 over 3. So those are my two solutions to this problem. All right, so moving on to that last one, number 6. We're going to do that same thing, so it's already in standard form, so we can skip step 1. So then I'm going to identify A, B, and C. So A in this case is 1, B is -4, and C is +3. So I'm going to solve B squared minus 4AC. So I've got -4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 3. So -4 squared means -4 times -4, which would be +16. And then -4 times 1 times 3 would give me -12. Right? -4 times 1 is -4. -4 times +3 would give me -12. So then I've got 16 minus 12, and 16 minus 12 is 4. So then because I have a positive number, that means I'm getting two solutions. So now when I go to figure out what those two solutions are, I use my quadratic formula. So x equals -b, so negative of -4 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, which we've already solved to be 4, all over 2 times a, and a in this case is 1. So I have that x equals negative of -4 is the same thing as +4, right? Because a negative and a negative make a positive. So we can change that to +4. Then the square root of 4 is 2. And then 2 times 1 would give me 2 in the denominator. So we've simplified all the pieces of our quadratic formula. And now we're ready to split up those two pieces. So we're going to have x equals 4 plus 2 divided by 2, and 4, and x equals 4 minus 2 divided by 2. So 4 plus 2 is 6, divided by 2 would be 3. So one of my solutions is x equals 3. And then 4 minus 2 is 2. Divided by 2 would give me 1. So x equals 1 is my other solution. So those would be the two solutions that we were solving for. So hopefully with those 6 examples, you can try the next 8. There are 8 on the next page for you to try. So go ahead and try those problems. Remember, you can check your solutions on Schoology. The solutions are posted. So check your solutions, and then you're actually going to turn in page 190. So I'm going to have you submit that for me so that I know that you got that done. I hope you guys are doing well, and if you have any questions, remember to come see us during our office hours.